And kids in 1970, they were killed for protesting. So at that point, when the state troopers killed the kids at Kent State, the people got pissed off, and they said, you know what, we don't want a draft anymore. We want a lottery for the last 2 years of the war. We don't want this war anymore. So I ended up to be in the next to last lottery drawing, and luckily enough, my number was too high. I wasn't called. But just before that, a lot of my friends who had been a little older, who were coming back from Vietnam, were coming back drug addicts, coming back wounded or whatever. So I talked to some of the guys who came back that really screwed up. And I said, what happened to you? The guys were telling me that the job that they gave them over there was to guard the poppy fields. So poppy fields, oh man, you can't believe the drugs. And like, this is what we're doing over there. This is bullshit. This is about opium. And here I am, 17 years old. I got it. So now I'm watching this whole thing, and I'm saying, you know what? Let me look into this opium thing, because, opium is in a lot of things, a lot of hospitals, a lot of drugs. And I go, wait a minute, they're making a lot of money. I mean, they're making people addicts. There are a lot of things that you buy over the counter, or drugs, prescription drugs, that you've got these chemical names that you can't even pronounce. And it makes me wonder, are they putting some small percentage of opium in these things to addict people? And then I go, wait a minute, where are these pharmaceutical companies located? Well, lo and behold, they're all in Germany. Interesting enough, they're not in the United States. They're out of the country, so they can't even be slapped, for fines or whatever. And then you got the Federal Food and Drug Administration, which is the government, telling people who have health food stores, we're going to come in there and confiscate all your stuff because there's no opium in it, or it can't addict people, or it can help people. So I start looking at some of the things, like, wait a minute, I'm outside of the matrix. I'm not in the matrix, so I see things a little different. And I guess I see them a little different, Nancy, because I'm not chasing the carrot. I'm not, like looking at the mundane things. I'm not watching Monday Night Football. I'm not watching Wheel of Fortune. I'm not watching a baseball player who makes $1 million for hitting a stupid little ball around. I'm looking at life, and life to me, that's not life. To dumb me down where I can't even open my mind up. So wait a minute, it doesn't work that way. So when I look at things, I look at them open-mindedly, because the mind is like a parachute, Nancy. And for anyone listening, it only works if it's open. And the moment that you say, I don't believe you, I'm going to attack you, then you're really shallow, because you haven't researched it. You haven't even attempted to look at what the message is. Your ego comes in, and, oh, well, I know more than you. Well, no, you don't, because you didn't research it. If you knew more than I did, then you profess some points rather than to attack the person who's trying to give you the benefit of sharing information that might help you and your children and your grandchildren. This has been going on, like I said, from 1920, and most people don't realize, Nancy, that in 1920 there was a terrorist attack in New York, and the attack was in front of Wall Street, in front of the J.P. Morgan Bank. Now, why this is important today? Because FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover was a junior detective at that time, and he was on that case. They never found who the guy was who set off the bomb in front of the J.P. Morgan. A lot of people got hurt. But what they did was they were trying to extort, trying to strong-arm blackmail the bankers at J.P. Morgan to now let them infiltrate their bank, so that way they can create this money laundering scheme. And that's why J.P. Morgan today is one of those three banks today, because in 1920, they went and they blackmailed them to get that bank. And then later on, Prescott Bush was indicted for funneling money for Nazi Germany's Adolf Hitler. So there's a connection to Nazi Bush, and Bush is very powerful. And that's why this has been very, very hush-hush, because he's probably one of the most powerful men in the world, and he's able to stifle things. And a lot of the attempts that have happened on my life was because of what I say specifically about him, that I now have more of an ability to prove. I mean, getting back to Barack Obama, one of the clues was interesting. He's now in the first or second grade, and he tells his teacher in an essay that he's going to be the president of the United States, which I found that's a great thing to be. But he tells his next teacher, when he's in Indonesia, he writes a essay there that he's going to be the president of the United States. So I find that very interesting, that here he is as a young boy telling people he's going to be the president of the United States. What the main clue was that got me really excited was in his high school in Hawaii. He went to a school called the Punahou High School, and behind the high school cafeteria, in the concrete cement, he himself put in the concrete the words King Obama. He was telling people that he was the son of a king back in high school, bragging. So that, to me, set it off for me. And then one thing was interesting, his school records for his kindergarten records in Hawaii mysteriously got lost. They can't find his school records in Hawaii. So it's already been proven that his birth certificate's been a forgery. And the Pickford-Glickman case I gave you, there was $1.25 billion stolen. Barack Obama, while he was a senator, wrote one bill in Congress. And that bill in Congress is the one that I'm citing, the Pickford versus Glickman, where there were black farmers who had a case where they were suing the government for being denied loans, and 440 of them came forward. Later on, Barack Obama reopened up this bill, and 440 became 86,000 claims. Now,
okay.
What's interesting, there were only 36,000 farmers across the whole America, but Barack put the bill into 86,000. So there it was, he was caught stealing, and American people, they're asleep on this.
Well, again, a lot of people listening are probably going to go, this man is just so full of bull. Where does he come up with his facts? My thought is, Stephen, is that a lot of people who voted for Obama are very much probably upset with the way things are turning out, because during his campaign it was like change this and hope and all that. But the thing is that most of his cabinet members that he put back in there were already in there. So there really wasn't a change there. So why would they want Barack Obama to be president? How is that going to help out the Bush? How is that going to help out anybody?
Well, here's how it helps. The King Bahumabol of Thailand is the bank launderer for George Bush for the money going from the United States into Thailand. The king is 82 years old now. When he dies, he has a son whose name is Prince Vajiralongkorn. So Prince Vajiralongkorn and Barack are the two sons. So one of these two guys has to keep the money going for the drug money to go into these Thailand banks, and that is why Barack Obama was chosen to be recruited to be the president of the United States, so they could keep this opium network going for the next 40 or 50 years, whatever. And one of the reasons why Bahumabol was able to allow his youngest son, Barack Obama, to be used is because throughout history, anytime there were two sons in a family, one always killed off the other one jealous because he wanted to ascend to the throne. So because Bahumabol Aduyadev killed his brother to ascend to the throne in 1946 with the help of the CIA, he knew that Barack Obama and his brother Vajiralongkorn at some point would have killed each other for his throne later on.
Okay. So Bush, I'm taking, has a lot to do with Barack being where he's at today, although Bush is a Republican and Barack is a Democrat. Is that not true?
It's not about. They're one party. People don't realize they're one party. You know, I'll give you an example. If you were going to go to a horse race and there are only two horses in a race, you wouldn't bet any money on it because somebody could fix both horses or a prize fight. So if I own both of the candidates, then I could shift policies however I want. Here's all they want, Nancy. Regardless of who's president, all they want is to keep the troops overseas so they can keep the opium network going. They don't care. That's what they want. It doesn't matter who's in power as long as they have the opium network in place. They use the U.S. banks, which I mentioned, to the Thailand banks, and the drug money keeps going. Anybody listening could do this. Go to Google and search Thailand. Thailand is more built up than New York City or L.A. or any city in the United States. Where did they get that money? And when you look at the photos in Thailand, Nancy, they're in U.S., they're in English. Everything is in English. So I'm looking at this like, oh my God, how did they build this third world country to look better than any city in the United States? Where does this money come from? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out it's about opium, it's about drugs. And I'll tell you this. You know what Big George Bush's nickname was, George Herbert Walker Bush's nickname since the 60s? His nickname is Big Poppy. Poppy for Poppy Field.
It can make a lot of sense. All right, so we'll go with that for right now, Stephen. Why did 9/11 happen, in your opinion?
Oh, I know why it happened. It happened so that way they could get the troops over in Afghanistan. Afghanistan now is the largest producer of opium in the world now. They went from number 10 to number 1. And right now we've got over 10,000 troops, our troops and CIA Mossad troops that are guarding the poppy fields. That's why. And they're increasing the production. The drugs, they'll go from Afghanistan, make their way back to Thailand, to Bangkok, and distribute it all over the world. That's what this is about. This is an easy case to prove, Nancy.
So
all you got to do is go.
Go ahead.
All we have to do is go to J.P. Morgan in New York, Citibank of Thailand, New York, and Bank of America, New York, New York, those three banks, and audit them and see where the wire transfers are going. Especially now, because Barack just passed this debt ceiling increase. The money is now going to be funneled to Thailand, and all these senators who voted for this are getting kickbacks into some account, private account, which is in Thailand, using a SWIFT system, 8 to 11 characters, where the money is transferred from these three banks to the three Thailand banks that I'm telling you. So this is all about keeping the war going. Right now, they've got a guy in place so they can steal. The money can be laundered. And he already stole, as a congressman, $1.25 billion. Now, he writes this budget that is also going to Thailand. All these people who sided with him, they know that they're going to get paid. You know, a congressman only gets paid $200,000. A senator gets paid like $200,000. But when their time is done, when they come out of office, every one of them are worth millions, and they all invest with J.P. Morgan and other stock companies. And I'm looking at this. You know what? If you can follow the money and you see where the money goes, then the buck can stop right here. Right now, if everybody got together, and I have on my site, it's called the Reform Act of 2011. We all contact 20 people. Then, like in 1970, we got the law passed to vote, the 18-year-olds to vote in 3 months and 8 days. If we go in and stop these congressmen, these senators for the bills that they pass and things that they pass without our approval, then we can stop the nonsense now. We have to bring the troops back home. If we bring back the troops back home, then they're going to have to go out themselves and guard their own poppy fields.
Well, the problem is you know that that's not going to happen because they will constantly keep us in the state, quote, of terror, thinking that somebody is going to try to get us. And people won't like what I'm going to say, but to me, the United States has been proven over and over again to be the biggest terrorists there are, you know, with what they have done. With all the history, if people would just go back and check all the things they've done, if somebody doesn't agree with this, they suddenly disappear, or they're killed, or some kind of an accident happens. So history is going to continue to repeat itself until the American people decide that they really want their constitutional rights back, which we don't have not had in many, many, many years. And yet we sit here and we listen to the boob tube and we listen to the radio, and the media tells us this and the media tells us that, when in reality, I tell people, turn off your TVs, turn off the radio, trust what you're feeling, follow your gut, you'll find out the truth. However, people are very lazy. So do you think, Stephen, if there was, say, a massive group of people who decided to do, quote, a revolution, well, like a revolutionary war, do you think that would help? Do you think that would wake up people, or do you think that it would get squashed very quickly?
Well, I don't think it would get squashed quickly. Here's the visions I get, you know, and I'm going to use their propaganda man's words himself, Jesse Ventura. He was a guy who was a wrestler, read a script. They made him an actor, hung out with Schwarzenegger, another Skull and Bones guy. Next thing you know, he becomes governor just like Schwarzenegger. So they make people bigger than life. But what my point is, he had a book that says, don't start the revolution without me. You know. So here's what I'm going to say to people. I envision just what's happening in England right now. You have people that are now flipping out in England. And why has that happened? There's no jobs now. And the people initially, when they were brought to that country, were collateral damage. Let me tell you what I mean. You need taxes, you need people, you need collateral. So they bring in a lot of people abroad to become citizens. So now, because they want them to work, because they want them to tax them. But because of the opium and all the drugs that they're doing, all these people now ended up on drugs, and all these people having children, and now the second generation are probably all whacked. And these people now are turning against them, and they're burning stuff in England because these drugs that they put in these other drugs now have messed up all these people's minds. So the people that they're trying to enslave now are enslaving them.